Welcome back to our guide on importing a character into Super Smash Bros. 64. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to start the process of animating. As we know, when it comes to Smash Bros. Characters, the model is only half the battle, and we have to make the character move and perform actions. When it comes to making the model move, having the model in its existence is one thing, but moving is a completely different endeavor. What do I mean? Let's go back to our high poly model of Brian. If we look at his bone structure, for example, his arms, you can see where the bones are sort of placed inside each arm. Now, if we move these bones, you can see how he would animate. Now let's take a look at Brian. Let's put his arm wide out like this. He's stretching his arm out, getting ready to do some kind of magic. Now let's take a look at the model itself. As you can see right here, this is not animation proof. Maybe from a distance, but up close, you can see there's a hole. Let's take a look at another spot, shall we? When it comes to Brian's feet, we have his leg, which we can rotate in different directions. Say we want to kick on the side. And let's say he's going to walk. So this is what his leg is going to look like animated. If you take a look, pay attention, but now we've got this big old triangle sticking out the front. That is not animation proof. Let's do one more check. Let's go to his elbow here. If I rotate his arm, just to give him a punching position, as you can see, there's a point. This is not animation proof. What we need to do is we need to come back to this model and we need to start thinking about animation and tweaking it so that it works correctly. Another thought would be such as his body here. That cape is connected to his body, but it would probably be more beneficial if it had its own bone structure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to step away and I'm going to start tweaking the model. When I come back, we're going to discuss what kind of changes I made to animation proof this model. I am back. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the modifications I made to my Brian model. Originally, the cape was attached to the body, but what I decided to do was, because I do know I want the cape to flow and move on its own, I attached it to its own set of bones. So now the cape will move, and it can bend. When we looked at our last example, one of the issues we had to worry about was the elbow joint. So if we grab the elbow joint here and we rotate it, as you can see, it looks like it's more attached to the body. If we take a look at it in wireframe mode, you can see that instead of being a flat triangle, I gave it some depth. And if we bring it outwards, let's rotate it forward, doing a fist bump. Now, if we look underwards, well, it's not quite attached, it's much less noticeable. So, when we're standing from a distance, we've paused and we're here, that looks like it's mostly connected to the body. So, when we animate him, it's going to be more convincing. Let's take a look at that elbow. Remember last time, when we bent it, the pyramid stuck out the bottom. Well, now I shrunk it, made it so that it's actually closer to where the joint is, so when the elbow bends, you're not going to see the geometry extend out. Finally, let's take a look again at his foot. As you can see, while not perfect, which can be expected, for the range of motion that I'm hoping to accomplish, this is pretty good. One of the other things that I did decide to make changes to is his staff here. If we look at his staff, I attached it to Ness's bat bone, essentially. And the reason why I did this is because I want to be able to have him reposition the staff while not moving the entire hand or arm. You can do that with sticks. If you ever grabbed a stick, you can change the way you're holding it. And I want to be able to mimic that because, again, a lot of the moves I plan for Brian is going to be him using his staff to bludgeon people. Now that we've looked at different ways to animation-proof Brian, I want to draw attention to a few key things before we move on to the next guide. Originally, when we were modifying Brian, Brian had roughly 280 tries. You can see the tries again if you go down to the corner and you look at the total. Now, the Brian model has 319. Where did these extra tries come from? Well, if you remember, we came in and animation-proofed the model. That means that I had to take that incredibly sharp joint and round it out. That means when we look at this individual joint, now it has 12 tries associated with it. Originally, it was roughly half that. And that's because when we look at it, I had taken that incredibly sharp object and converted those triangles, those single triangles, ended up becoming a quad, 4. So I have 2 faces, plus the extra 3 that I had originally. And doing that on both sides adds up immensely. The same thing applies when it comes to his feet, for example. I had made adjustments to this buckle on the shoe, and that added in tries, especially when I added a bottom to it. His cape had adjustments. I had created these extra vertices in the middle so that I could make the cape flow. By going in and making this model animation ready, we ended up increasing the amount of tries that the model required. While you are working on your model and making sure it is animation ready, you have to pay attention to this. While it is not a hard limit by any means, 320 is what Link ended up being. And going higher will put tax and strain on the system. Part of our goal for Brian is to have him run on console. A lot of people that play Smash Brothers, Smash Remix, any form of Smash 64 mod usually do it from the comfort of their couch. With that in mind, Brian has to conform to the standards that are allowed. It has to conform so that the system can handle the model and the character. He has 320 right now. We're going to shrink this down to 200 for the low poly, and that has to be remembered and considered. I just wanted to make sure I stressed that point. While making him animation ready, we ended up increasing our tries. So please make sure you pay attention to that. With this, we have made our model animation proof. This was a very iterative process. What I mean is I went in and I tweaked, I added, I changed, I extruded, I took that model and I did as much changes as possible so that when I make a change to the position, it looks natural. Let's see here. Select those, rotate. That way, it doesn't look too bad. Now, from everything we've done, we have rigged, we have modeled, we have made sure it was animation proof, it's textured. Now we can look into the bulk of the work. What do I mean by that? To get this character to be an original creation, we're going to need to create animations for him, we're going to need to create many different assets. And we're going to need to code. So now that we have our model animation proof, next step is going to be planning. Thank you.